An interesting example this week of superheroes in action, focusing on the favourite problem of improving communication, but a real life application that we used in a logistics company relatively locally. Before we leap into solving the problem, we have to kind of resist that particular urge and hold ourselves back and make sure we've got the very best definition of the problem itself. And so we went through the process of boundary examination, which has been explained in a previous video cartoon. The problem was absolutely transformed, as is ever the case. We started with how can we improve communication, and by going through this process of exploration of the problem itself, we ended up with the problem owner plumping for in what way might the management team guarantee the elimination of sending non-documentary emails. And the target here was those generic emails that are copied to all and sundry, rather than emails that are sending very specific documents from A to B, which clearly needs to happen on an efficiency basis as much as anything else. So it's those generic emails that we're talking about here. So we then launched into the superheroes technique. We had 4 or 5 people in the room, so each adopted a different superhero character, and were encouraged to brainstorm possible solutions, obviously generating novel and useless ideas, as a stepping stone towards true creativity. Thankfully, we had Batman in the room. The Caped Crusader was with us. And we started exploring the solution from his perspective, and something interesting started to emerge, just knocking around the ideas. We kind of identified that inevitably within any of the old 60s Batman episodes, there was a moment where either Batman or Robin was captured by the villain and held on some sort of circular saw table, with the saw getting ever closer. Kind of interesting because it provided a threat, it provided a moment of excitement and thrill and a slight nervousness. And we started messing around with this because we were always confident, of course, at the end of the day, that the villain would be captured, that Batman would rescue Robin in this particular case. There'd be that magical kapow moment when the tables were turned and the villain was carted off. And just looking around that, we're looking at the aspects of that we quite liked. We liked the theatrical nature of it. We liked the fact that it was always over the top, but everyone knew it was over the top. But you nevertheless got sucked in. You were slightly nervous. There was a slight adrenaline rush at the very prospect of what might or might not happen. But it was never really scary. You always knew that at the end of the day all would be well. And we thought we quite fancied the idea of taking those concepts and applying to this particular problem. If you imagine the villain being the sender of the generic email, and if you imagine that the circular saw is the threat that's posed to them, that kind of makes them think twice maybe about sending it, something that would make them slightly nervous, but not really scared at the prospects that were going to be coming their way if they were to send this generic email. And playing around just randomly with the ideas, for one reason or another, and I can't recall how or why, and it doesn't really matter, we came across the Phantom Flanflinger, for those that remember from Tiswas days. And the whole idea that some sort of dark character would appear from the wings unsuspected and launch into a flan-flinging exercise targeting one particular individual was kind of an entertaining concept. And we thought, well, maybe we can carry this into solving this problem of sending the generic emails. Maybe we could get the IT department to add a little icon on the bottom of every email that's sent, which was a flan-flinging icon of one form or another, that if the recipient of the email deemed this to be an email that shouldn't have been sent, or they shouldn't have been copied in, they could merely click on it. And maybe over time, the number of clicks for each of the senders could be built up, and you can imagine some sort of league table being generated and building up, and maybe displayed on the intranet, maybe displayed week by week on the notice board, so people could see who was at the top of the league table for sending generic, pointless emails. And that over time, maybe they get a little bit nervous, because the consequences would be that descending upon them in the darker moments, if they were at the top of the league at the end of the month, at some time within the following week, they would find themselves face to face with the flan-flinger. And very publicly, they'd be slightly humiliated, but in a very theatrical, fun kind of way. Quite a neat idea, kind of raises the issue, would make people think twice without it being too hot and heavy. Nice idea. Would it eliminate unwanted emails? Well, over time it would raise that awareness of the fact that people should think twice. And of course, tales of flan-flinging would spread across the organisation, and no one would want to be the object of that or the subject of that. So, Maybe flinging flans is the answer to unwanted emails. The trick, of course, is to pluck up the courage to actually go ahead and implement it. Great idea, generated a huge amount of interest and excitement at the very prospect. The trick then is really finding a way of putting it into the organisation, making sure it matches with the culture. But a great outcome if you dare do it.